All right, everybody. So we're time to go live again this week. So I'm going to get in after it about the topic that you see on the screen, metabolism porn. Usually I wait for people to get on board, but I'm just going to get right back at it. So hopefully, if you're out there, let me know you're out there. Leave comments in the comment section. That always helps, especially after the fact. If you're seeing this after the fact, that'll really help as well. So you can do all that. And yeah, I just want to get things started here and bring up the webinar about metabolism porn that I want to talk about. It's a term that I coined in a conversation with one of the fellow experts off camera the other day, and I thought it was a good phrase to use given what goes on online and stuff. So I'm going to use that term and explain to you how and why it's an important term to use. Metabolism porn, what it is, and why you should know about it. And I'll get closer to that near the end. But the first thing I want to start off with is misunderstanding metabolism, understanding metabolism, misunderstanding metabolism, because it all feeds into understanding the phrase I'll get to later called metabolism porn. So really good stuff, but we got to start out with ways that people misunderstand metabolism, even if they've read my books about metabolism, etc. So I'm going to read the whole webinar and then I'll get to your comments afterward if you can just hold off. But let me know along the lines if, you have any your supportive comments or whatever. So too many people misunderstand metabolism, and because of that, they fall for gimmicks that have been around for decades. If you saw my webinar, with Dr. Greger, you know that I mentioned recently when I was traveling, I had the shopping network on while I was packing, and there was two girls doing a whole shenanigans with keto lifestyle, and they were selling meal plans and supplements and all the rest. And a lot of what they said was clearly bunk. An awful lot of other things that they said was just buzzwords, marketing buzzwords that they used over and over again. As a matter of fact, I looked it up. And sure enough, they were using old, tried and proved buzzwords, marketing buzzwords that you could have used for old quackery diets like the grapefruit diet, the cabbage soup diet. So they were just sort of insert here kind of thing. So I want to get to the ways in which these things can even work on the consumer mind, misunderstanding metabolism and how metabolism porn has a lot to do with that. So I'm going to get right to that as I talk about this. So even when Atkins was exposed as a fraud years and years back, when Atkins was all the rave, peaked, and then it was Dr. Greger who exposed him, and then the Atkins corporation went bankrupt, and then it only took a few years for the same nonsense to become keto. It's pretty much the same stuff. And what we learn is that we don't learn anything. We learn that diet books sold for profit outsell diet and metabolic science probably on a scale of 100 to 1 or larger at least, which is too bad because now the science is out there. The research is out there. But the politics for profit in terms of nutrition still outweighs actual research findings. So I want to show you how and why that works. So research is also continually misrepresented and misused or even ignored in order to present an agenda. And that agenda is always making money. So it's also how you make money is, one, you get people to fall over hope over experience. And two, you get people to belief over reason, which I've talked about in several of my previous webinars as well. So let's talk metabolism and the three realms of the metabolic compensation system or the metabolic adaptation system. I like to call it the compensation system. So the three realms of time within which metabolism functions is the immediate realm, the residual realm, and the cumulative realm. And even though it's the cumulative realm that matters most, diet industry focus is always on the immediate and the residual realms, the two realms that just happen to correspond with 12-week diets, 12-week transformation challenges, all these things that happen in the residual realm as a result of immediate stimulus before the cumulative realm of metabolic compensation adapts and compensates, and people gain all their weight back. And not only do we know in the metabolic compensation system over the cumulative course of time, not only do 95+% of people gain their weight back, but the weight that they gain back is a larger percentage of fat. So they end up gaining more fat than they started with. And yet you're never going to hear this outside of actual research. You're never going to read it in diet books. You're never going to read it in how-to books. And you're certainly never going to see it in 12-week transformation challenges or cleanses and all the rest. So I'm going to give you some examples here on how you trick your own brain to buy into metabolism porn and to buy into online nonsense. So I'm going to give you some examples here from the immediate realm and the residual realm. So the immediate realm is the stimulus, and the residual realm is the metabolic compensation to that stimulus that leads you to misunderstanding over and over again, misunderstanding metabolism. So let's look at it. Let's get into it. And hopefully you're following along. If you are, leave some supportive comments and some emoticons and yada, yada. So let's look straight away at the number one best-selling nonsense online, especially. If you cut carbs for a few to several days, you will lose a lot of body water and scale weight goes down. So that's an immediate stimulus with a residual response. If you continue this path, you'll start losing lean tissue more so than fat tissue as well. And the scale may continue to go down. These keto girl nonsense, that's all they talked about was weight. They didn't talk about fat percentage. They talked about weight. So if you listen to my podcast with Michael Greger, he nailed this on the head when he said, what people don't realize here, they're no longer losing fat weight. And now down the road in the cumulative phase, you also now have turned on and ignited metabolic mechanisms of enhanced fat storing and possibly even metabolic downregulation, what I call metabolic damage, as outlined in the Biggest Loser study and other studies referred to in my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting. Maybe someone can post that up there as well. So right here is an example. What we see is in the early phase of, say, a week or two after cutting carbs, you think everything's wonderful. You go out and you eat carbs for a few days. And then what happens in this residual realm of metabolic compensation? The weight loss stops, or your scale weight even goes up a little bit. And you tell yourself that this means that you are carb resistant or that carbs aren't right for you because look what happened when you ate them. Forgetting that you ate them after cutting them out for a long period of time. And then in your head, you say this proves that for you in particularly, low carb diet is better for your particular physiology. This is where we come up with the nonsense that you have to find out what works best for you. Not if you don't understand any of this stuff. You can't find that out if you're completely ignorant. I can't find out Chinese philosophy if I don't know how to read Chinese. All right. So none of that is true. And I'm going to explain it to you. What happens, you cut carbs, is you've put your metabolism into a supercompensation mode for carbs. Your body is trying to replenish glycogen stores, and carbs, of course, when you store carbs, they attach a certain amount of water, something like 2.7 grams of water per gram of carbohydrate as well. So all that is happening here is that you deprived your body of something it needs to function and for energy, and you triggered it to overstore what it needs if it ever gets the chance. And that's the immediate stimulus, the residual response. But then all you have done is attached a faulty belief system to a metabolic process that you set in motion to begin with. So you cut carbs, you saw a water loss response, and then you ate some carbs, the weight scale stopped moving, and then you make a faulty connection in your mind that this proves that carbs aren't right for you. But all you did was program a specific metabolic response from an immediate stimulus to a residual response. And if that goes on, like I said, over the cumulative realm of time, you're going to end up gaining more body fat than you started with. We'll get to that in a while. I have something here else to show you. Take a look in the comment sections as well. Perry is posting the books I'm mentioning as I mentioned them. So I don't want to put them in the in the show just right yet. I'll get to them maybe when I get to the comments. So let me give you another example here. Let's look at sodium. If you cut salt completely out of your diet for a few weeks, and then for a few days you end up eating a lot of high sodium foods, maybe you're traveling or something like that, you notice right away that your body is suddenly retaining a ridiculous amount of water. You know, if you were a bodybuilder back in the day and you followed stupid no sodium stuff or water loading before a contest, oh my God, now all my veins are gone. So you notice right away when you eat sodium, put it back in your diet after taking it out, that you start retaining water. And you tell yourself that this only proves that your own particular physiology can't handle sodium. But again, that isn't true at all. All that has happened here is that by drastically eliminating sodium, your aldosterone system kicks in. That's that residual metabolic compensation, metabolic response, metabolic adaptation, if you will. And once your aldosterone system kicks in, then when you have excess sodium, your body super compensates yet again because it doesn't know if it's going to get sodium that it needs to live and function by. So it holds on to it, trying to overstore what it's been deprived of for so long. But then what happens is, once again, you in your own mind attach a false belief to a metabolic process that you set in motion. So you deprive something in the immediate realm, your body overcompensates in the residual realm, and then you make up a story in your mind of what that means that just isn't true based on physiology. And this is how and why so many people misunderstand metabolism. And more importantly, this is how marketers of nonsense can profit from it by manipulating you in what you believe to be true that just isn't. So let me draw a conclusion here for you. The first stop sign then is stop equating what the bathroom scale does with progress or lack of progress. There are a million biochemical and hormonal responses that happen in the immediate and the residual and the cumulative phases of metabolism, where you can be making solid long-term progress without the bathroom scale doing anything that indicates that progress or lack of progress or whatever. So a bathroom scale at best is an indicator, but without a greater context, it doesn't mean a whole lot, even though marketers will get you to rely on that over and over and over again. Let me give you another example. This one further into the cumulative realm of metabolic response. How about stomach enzymes and digestive issues? Things like bloating, what I call colon hockey or colon ping pong, stomach distension. I used to see this a lot when I trained female competitors. You get on a really restrictive diet, whether you're a competitor or not, and this weakens your digestive enzymes and even cancels many others since they're no longer being used. So, I'll give you an example. The old tilapia in green beans 5 times a day competition diet was notorious for this. In that world, the hardcore world, that was seen as brilliant. I don't know why everyone paid the same guy for the same diet, but they did. So tilapia, green beans, 5 times a day, what happens is, of course, it weakens their digestive enzymes because they're not exercising a variety of foodstuffs. So the microbiome gets weakened in both strength and number. Then these people try to go back to eating other normal, healthy foods after a contest or whatever, or even enjoyable foods, pizza or whatever. And then the stomach goes haywire. You get bloating, you get colon hockey, stomach distension, water retention in the stomach. Scott, I look pregnant is a quotation I hear all the time. And you tell yourself that this is proof that you can't eat those foods ever again, or to the marketer's delight, you tell yourself this means you must need prebiotics and probiotics and all the biotics to get your system functioning again. But yet all that is happening is that by eliminating so many different foods for so long, you reduced your digestive enzyme strength and numbers and ability to handle any foods outside of this restriction. And then once again, all you have done then after that is attach a faulty belief system to a metabolic response that you set in motion by what you did, stimulus response. Same with so many people who think they are gluten intolerant, and on it goes. So what is happening here is that you introduce a process in the immediate realm, all right, of metabolism, just like programming a computer with software. But when your body reacts and responds in the residual realm to what you actually set in motion, you end up attaching a faulty belief to a very predictable metabolic response. This is how so many people end up misunderstanding metabolism, and this is how so many other people profit from your misunderstanding. Microbiome health, especially because it can last for such a long time when people experience the bloating and the distension and everything. It can take a while to get back. Microbiome health, which I've talked about in my podcast with Dr. Angie, and hopefully we can have her back on again. So it's very, very important here that people keep falling victim by misunderstanding metabolism, by totally just ignoring the three time realms of the metabolic compensation system: the immediate, the residual, and the cumulative. And that's just a few examples, folks. I could go on. Well, I did write a book about it, but I could go on and on about it. But those are just a few examples where the fault is with the consumer or the people who don't know how to disseminate information, and you attach a faulty belief system to a metabolic process that was otherwise quite predictable. So that leads to my concept of what I call metabolism porn. All right. Now, I wanted to get into this, and hopefully like people will really get what I'm saying. This is going to go over, the metaphor is going to go over a lot of people's heads, and that's fine. But this is where I really want people who jump in later, jump in with your comments, expand upon what I'm talking about here, because I think it's really important. And then I'm going to get to everybody's comments. Please keep leaving your comments. That's great. And I'm going to get to them at the end, and we'll really focus on it. So metabolism porn is different than the concept of food porn, but definitely connected. Now, I want to ask a question. How and why does the porn industry evolve? What is the mass appeal of a porn industry? And I'm using the word porn on purpose rather than adult entertainment. Adult entertainment is the better term, I think, as someone who has no problem with the industry at all. But I want to use the word porn both denotatively and connotatively. So I want you to understand how an industry like this can become so powerful for so long, right? So we see both underground and now that it's sort of more mainstream, although people don't want to admit it. So how does something like that manifest? How does it evolve? How does it become, a multi-billion dollar a year business and so popular, even though everyone wants to deny it? Well, let's look at that, because it's going to be really, really important to understanding metabolism porn in the phrase that I'm using it. So we have two hardwired survival drives. Food and sex are both hardwired into us once our hormones kick in beyond childhood for survival. Both are motivated. Our drive for food, our drive for sex are motivated by often an appeal to libidinous energy. So where porn comes from in the food industry, it creates things like the Food Network. It creates the evolution of restaurants, cooking channels, magazines, hyper-palatable food appeals, the food industry, the fast food industry, crazy flavors, et cetera, because all of that can appeal to the libidinous energy of our hardwired drive to seek food and want food and enjoy food. And our drive for sex works the exact same way. And so the porn industry, by creating sexual desire in our mind beyond normal hormonal rhythms to do with age, etc. So we look at the word porn and what it means and what it signifies in the broader connotative context to understand metabolism porn, so that you can be more empowered next time you see images, messages, diet commercials, whatever. So at its most basic level, porn is entertainment, right? And we want to look at diet agenda as entertainment as well, rather than as fixed information or science. But porn also works by appealing to sexual arousal, which we're hardwired to respond to. And it does this by being provocative, by being seductive, by appealing to immediate gratification, lighting up the arousal and reward centers of our brains. It's visual, it's stimulating, it's titillating, but it also appeals directly to fantasy. stimulating or re-stimulating our interest in what we are hardwired to be interested in to begin with in order to survive. That is how this evolves. It's not some magical thing. Porn creates a fascination with what we're hardwired for in terms of evolutionary drives. This is software underlining our own hardware, if you will. So the porn evolution is completely understandable if you understand the hardwiring of the human brain in terms of survival of the fittest and adaptation of the most fittest and all these other things. Now, of course, in terms of online presence, porn delivers unprecedented clickbait through titillation and provocation. And this clickbait element is really, really important. So why does any of this matter? Because metabolism porn works exactly the same way, especially in terms of online clickbait, things that are trying to appear as knowledge or information you should have, which is really just clickbait to sell you something like those ridiculous keto girls on the shopping network. So let me explain some more. In order to guarantee survival of the species, we are hardwired to enjoy both sex and food. And this is how porn is connected directly. Enjoyment and gratification and satisfaction. Think of those things. Enjoyment and gratification and satisfaction. So porn, the word, the vernacular porn, sexual or otherwise, appeals to the basic evolved hardwiring of our brains in regard to sex, and in this case, in regard to pay attention to things in regarding nutrition, metabolism, etc. Now, what a porn industry in terms of sex doesn't cater to are items of love and intimacy that are associated with survival of the species in a long-term way, given the nuclear family and the long-term realities of child rearing that has to take place over years and years. So that would be the cumulative realm of a necessity of survival of the species as well. So do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see how these things are connected and how the term metabolism porn makes sense, and that how it can arm you to pay attention or not pay attention to what you're going to see by the diet industry on television, online, whatever, before and after pictures. I'm going to get to all that in a minute. I'm going to read a letter coming up. So industries use metabolism porn the same way the porn industry uses sexual porn. Metabolism porn gets us to focus on nutritional elements of the immediate and residual time realms of metabolism while ignoring the long-term cumulative realms that matter the most. And while body weight and body image are not essential to survival, the marketing to us of both of those is the equivalent of the appeal of porn. Just as various iterations of sex are not necessary for survival, they can still have mass appeal and titillate and stimulate and provoke the mind, because the mind is hardwired to be provoked in the libido. And metabolism porn is working on you the exact same way because of how it has evolved. Metabolism porn gets us to focus on the provocative, the seductive, the titillation, the visual stimulus through before and after pictures, for example, and by enticing the libidinous hardwiring of our brains to want to pay attention to subjects regarding food. For instance, why is it on Instagram pictures of people's meals get the most likes and hits? Is it a bit of hardwiring? Is it a bit of soft wiring? It's a bit of both, but it's also a bit of metabolism porn. Think about this as well. Things like Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig commercials. This is where the porn part really is quite obvious. You watch those commercials and they show all the foods that make you fat to begin with, right? They show you, oh, and you can eat these foods. That's metabolism porn, not food porn, because in this example, the seduction is that these same foods that make you fat can somehow be the same foods that will make you lean and lose weight. So the appeal, the enjoyment, gratification, satisfaction tease, even though it is all fantasy appearing as reality, which is what porn does. Fantasy scenarios appearing as reality. That's metabolism porn. I'll give you another example that drives me insane. These same companies with their craving crusher shakes. Well, remember what I said. The drive for sex often happens because something appeals to the libidinous energy in our brains, the desire for food. We works through the libidinous energy in our brains as well through the libido. Hunger is directly associated with fat loss. These people are buying Jenny Craig and Nutrisys and the rest of this nonsense to forever lose weight, but they don't realize that hunger means fat loss. But what happens in the brain when you're hungry? It stimulates cravings. So they have craving crusher shakes that you can have, but as soon as you kill a craving, you kill the fat burning, and they don't want to tell you about that. I could give you craving crusher bananas, craving crusher fruit. Pretty much anything you eat when you're craving is going to kill a craving, at least in the immediate time frame of metabolism porn, just the way self-gratification works with sexual porn. So we are all hardwired to pay attention to this kind of stimulus. That's why we pay attention to stuff that we know is nonsense, but we'll watch anyway. Now, just like sexual porn doesn't address long-term realities of societal survival of the fittest, including child rearing, what metabolism porn doesn't do is entertain the same long-term realities of ignoring the cumulative adaptations and compensations of metabolism over a longer term. For instance, I want you to think about this and answer this. Put it in the comment section, whatever. If you're watching this later, put in what you're responding to. But let's think about this in reality. If you started a deprivation diet today, let's say low carbs, where do you think your weight would be 12 months from now instead of focusing on where your weight might be 12 weeks from now? This is where long-term reality has to replace short-term fantasy and wishful, lustful, short-term thinking. Everyone trying to lose weight gets caught in the metabolism porn loop where it's fantasy, wishful, lustful, short-term thinking with a complete ignoring of long-term cumulative effects of metabolism. They don't care, how do I lose weight right now? I don't care about raising a family. How do I get sexual gratification right now? That's porn, right? That's metabolism porn working the same way. For instance, the National Weight Control Registry, which studies people who have lost a substantial amount of weight and have kept it off for at least 1 year, the cumulative realm of metabolism, their findings yield less than 1% have achieved this through any kind of low-carb diet plan. And the greater the weight loss and the longer someone sustains weight loss over a longer period, the greater is the likelihood of a higher carb diet of healthy whole foods. Furthermore, in studies of overfeeding, which I'm going to do a lot of this stuff, like the infamous or the famous or infamous Vermont prison inmate study and other overfeed studies, high carb refeeds and overfeeding are much more forgiving in terms of weight gain than our higher fat percentages in refeeds. It took 100,000 more calories from carbs to gain the same amount of weight in an overfeed study than it took to gain that weight from fats. Think about that. 100,000 more calories from carbs to gain the same amount of weight. That's how forgiving in the long-term cumulative effect of metabolism that carbs are actually and how they work. So think about that. That is how metabolically forgiving carbs are versus fats in the long-term metabolic reality. And yet the metabolism porn fantasy still prevails. So the fantasy of what I call metabolism porn is not borne out in the long-term metabolic realities of what sustains us and what doesn't when it comes to physique transformation and weight loss, just like sexual porn, right? The fantasy of metabolism porn is not borne out in the long-term metabolic realities of what sustains us and what doesn't when it comes to physique transformation and weight loss. So I want you to look, I'm going to share with you this email I just received yesterday while I was working on this webinar. And let me tell you, I receive at least one of these a week, just like this one. And it's just how I base my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting. So I'm going to share this with you, and I'll shrink myself so you can see it. And hopefully you can read along with me there. It says, Dear Coach Abel, I'm 32 years old. I wanted badly to compete in a bodybuilding figure contest, so I hired a local contest prep guru who has a great track record with competitors and who talks about metabolism all the time. Long story short, I trained and dieted over a year on a high carb, on a high protein, really, really low carb diet. Long story short, I trained and dieted over a year on a high protein, really, really low carb diet. My coach exhausted me with constant training without recovery times and 7 days a week cardio. I got really sick at the end of it all, and I ended up not competing because I was so sick and weak. I was so drained and exhausted, not just physically, but for some reason mentally and emotionally as well. Of course, I completely lost my menstrual cycle. I ended up needing several meds I never needed before, and I experienced months and months of depression as well. My body has completely shut down, it seems, and my doctor was quite worried about it. It's now been over 6 months, and I still feel pretty bad, and I have this tremendous, hopefully all you can hear me on that. So I just realized I was muted. So let me go through this again. Dear Coach Abel, I'm 32 years old. I wanted badly to compete in a bodybuilding figure contest, so I hired a local contest prep guru who has a great track record with competitors and who talks about metabolism all the time. Long story short, I trained and dieted over a year on a high protein, really, really low carb diet. My coach exhausted me with constant training without recovery times and 7 days a week cardio. I got really sick at the end of it all, and I ended up not competing because I was so sick and weak. I was so drained and exhausted, not just physically, but for some reason mentally and emotionally as well. Of course, I completely lost my menstrual cycle. I ended up needing several meds I never needed before, and I experienced months and months of depression as well. My body has completely shut down, it seems, and my doctor was quite worried about it. It's been over 6 months, and I still feel pretty bad, and I have this tremendous guilt and shame about eating food, even bananas and fruit. Anytime I eat carbs, I feel guilty, even though I know this low carb stuff probably caused most of these problems I now suffer with. I saw the signs early enough, like constipation and my hair falling out and my skin being really dry, but I just wanted to compete so badly. Now I just feel like a total failure, and if I could just get my old body back, the one I had before I even started contest prep, I would be okay with that at this point. Can you help me with that, Coach? So let me just get rid of that now and bring back my original lecture here for everybody, and I'll finish my thoughts here. Bring that back up. So hopefully you read along with me and you get what I'm talking about. What we see here is the appeal and lure of metabolism porn in real time. An online contest prep guru coach who throws around the word metabolism all the time. This is the new wave of online seduction and fantasy in regards to body image and weight loss. You reel in potential clients by using the word metabolism, metabolism diet, metabolism support, yada, yada. But really, all they focus on is the immediate and the residual realms of time of the metabolic compensation system, these 12 to 16 week cycles before everything turns into metabolic chaos or has the potential to. So this is just online clickbait, just like porn sites, just like what happens on porn sites. It's just exaggerated clickbait. And what we see here is there's initial weight loss, an initial looking better and feeling better, and people are told to ride that as proof that the diet is working and that is metabolically supportive. And this represents the immediate porn-like gratification satisfaction loop that I was talking about earlier. But the reality is the short-term weight loss doesn't prove either of those things. Short-term weight loss in the residual realm of time does not prove that a diet is working. We know that from the Biggest Loser study. And it does not prove that a diet is metabolically supportive, that we also know from the Biggest Loser study and other long-term effects of prolonged dieting. So it's very, very important. So this is just metabolism porn working on your brain centers of desire and want and stimulation. It's just mental masturbation, if you will, just like sexual porn leads to. You are being lured by constant clickbait. It's an appeal of fantasy over reality, just as sexual porn is. And if you don't see the difference, I have no problem with the adult entertainment industry, but you have to know the difference between reality and fantasy. The only difference here is that metabolism porn can have long-term consequences on weight gain, on fat gain, on metabolism, on overall health, on gut health, and on never having a healthy relationship with food or your body ever again. Just like some people who overdo porn can never have a healthy relationship with regular sex and a sex partner ever again. Do you see why I coined the term metabolism porn? They are so connected that I'm hoping that people will be able to understand the wider context of what I'm talking about here. Now let's talk categories. Let's think of how sexual porn works online. The way it is presented within its own industry, the sexual porn industry, it's presented with categories, and the categories start very general, don't they? There's straight, gay, whatever, bi, right? Very general categories, and then they get very fetishized and delineated, and the categories are usually based on acts and scenarios, etc. Well, think about it. Metabolism porn works the exact same way, especially online. It's almost like these diet hucksters and weight loss hucksters have watched how porn sequences itself to learn the same tricks in order to take advantage of consumers. So look at metabolism porn also starts with very general categories: omnivore, carnivore, vegetarian, pescatarian, whatever. But then metabolism porn also gets delineated into more and more choices, just like sexual porn. You can go low carb, high carb, whole food, plant-based, this or that. But then there's subcategories as well to fetishize over. There's fasting, there's intermittent fasting, there's cleansing, there's carb backloading, there's, if it fits your macros, there's keto. But then there's keto with intermittent fasting, there's intermittent fasting vegan, there's keto vegan, and on and on and on. This is just metabolism porn being presented to you. This is all just fetishized items of diet and weight loss presented always on the focus, the minute, myopic focus, and the immediate and residual time realms, while completely ignoring the cumulative realms of time wherein the biggest effects on metabolism lay. So it's just fetishized metabolism porn. Are you hearing me out there? Hopefully you are. If you are and it relates, throw some thumbs up so I know you're still there, because I know this metaphor a lot of people aren't going to get, because it's I don't know, it might be too deep for people to get. But if you understand this, you'll never be used and abused again by these industries, because people keep buying into fetishized metabolism porn, and it's ridiculous. Remember, again, the National Weight Control Registry couldn't find any of these fetishized categories that ruled ongoing long-term weight loss. Successful people just consciously ate healthier more consistently until it became their lifestyle. That was the big secret. There was no fetish that ruled long-term weight loss. Metabolism porn and misunderstanding metabolism are very real consequences of fantasy over reality and over science when it comes to being exposed to marketing hype and agenda regarding diets, dieting, and metabolism. Yes, it's alluring, it's stimulating, it can even be immediately self-gratifying, but it's not real because it's not long-term. And I present this with the underlying hope and the underlying phrase: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. So now you'll be able to see some of the online clickbait that looks like knowledge, that looks like a reasonable argument, and you can say to yourself, oh, that's just metabolism porn. We need to harness this reality so that people stop falling for online metabolism porn and just see it as porn, not reality. It's just fantasy, not reality. And that is the important stuff. So you can see, like, I started all this with mentioning Misunderstanding Metabolism. So you can see my book, Understanding Metabolism. I'm sure Perry will post it in the notes here, and I'll throw it up on the screen. I'll throw the link up there as well real soon. But then, I also have my Cycle Diet online course, which talks about the 3 cumulative realms of time and how refeeds are so important to prevent metabolic downregulation and things like that. So I've got both of those. So hopefully, folks, you get what I've been saying all along about metabolism porn. It's an analogy that probably fly over a lot of people's heads. But for those of you who get it, please comment, leave some comments, add to it by all means. In the comment section, add to what I've come up with, because I'm sure more people can get what I'm saying and even add to it. So let me do that. So I'm just going through the comments, and I'll post these things as they come up. So Perry, there's the mini link to my book, Understanding Metabolism. So you can see that there. And there's a better one, I guess. Yeah, you can see that one there. There we go. Post that one. So there's a big link there. You can copy and paste that. So yeah, Alex is just leaving me a nice presentation there. Thank you for that comment, Alex. Perry's just posting my books, so I'll post them up here, the ones I've mentioned. There's the link to my book, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting, which was poo-pooed when I first got it out. God forbid the people in the industry who make money off this wanted to be exposed, but now with the Biggest Loser study, etc., going all the way back to the Ansel Keys study in 1950, we know metabolic damage exists. If you don't like the verbiage, then call it metabolic compensation, but I call it metabolic damage so people would get the message. So that's a real important thing as well. So Perry, who himself is a biochemist, just making the note, unless a person devotes some time to understand metabolic processes for themselves, they will fall victim to the misinformation. And let's just give that misinformation. The whole purpose of this webinar was to give this kind of information a name, and I'm calling it metabolism porn, just so people can get an analogy that might help them fight back against nonsense. So Daniel's just saying, 51 years old, having a hard time getting on track with both exercises and diet. I need to make the change, but all I do is think about that fact and never act. Ever get comments like this? Sure. A lot of people, anyone can think that they're going to change. Anyone, that's a no-brainer. Actually, I'm doing a short webinar coming up on that, Daniel. Actually, I'm on exactly that very thing. Anyone can do something. Set a goal for them. I get people that write me, Coach, I know I can do it. I just haven't done it yet. But that's of the people who can do it, a small percentage, 1 or 2% actually do it. So I'm in this upcoming really short online webinar I'm going to do next week, Monday or Tuesday. Hopefully, Daniel, you'll follow me on Facebook. You'll see that one come up. You look for the title. I think I'm titling it, Your Goal. Can you achieve it? And I'm going to get into better ways of looking at that. So, but I mean, right off the top of my head, Daniel, the number one thing is get help. I don't know if you've been trying this on your own all the time, but help is like any other industry. There's good help and there's not so good help. But if you look at before and after pictures of my clients, JP, people like Ange, whatever, they don't just get there with me, they stay there with me. And I think that's another important thing as well. People, they think once they arrive at their destination, then that's it. They no longer need the help from the person who journeyed them to get there. And that is a huge ego mistake. But first of all, you have to get there, and you need guidance and direction to get there. And that's important. Like, people totally underestimate the value of guidance and direction. So you don't get off track, you don't get misled, you don't fall for metabolism porn, things like that. Now, Perry, I'm going to get back to Perry's comment because he is a biochemist, and we've talked about this before, Perry and I, with gluten intolerance. He sees this all the time. Fewer than 1% of the U.S. population is actually gluten intolerant. Ask any gastroenterologist how many useless exams they are asked to do by people who have convinced themselves they're gluten intolerant, or they're sick in all kinds of other ways. So very, very important as well. I'm not sure what this article is that Perry's got up there, but it's probably worth looking at. Sorry, I reread that letter, folks. My software was telling me that I was muted, so I read it twice, but that's all good. So Domino's just saying he took the course and he has both books. So I'm assuming he took the course, one of my many courses online, the Cycle Diet course and the Cycle Diet book and the Understanding Metabolism. And then Perry's just posting here, folks, is the link to my Cycle Diet online course, which goes into some of this stuff. If you get that combined with Understanding Metabolism and Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting, you will really be set to understand what metabolism porn is and why I coined the phrase. And let me be clear and succinct about something else, folks. I've coined this term. I'm the one who coined the term metabolic damage years and years ago. So before everyone jumps on this out there in copy land, all right, remember metabolism porn, when you start seeing it pop up all over the internet, remember that it was I who formulated the term when other people are going to go out and lay claim to it themselves. No doubt that is going to happen, just as it did with metabolic damage. So very, very important. Domino's just saying, crazy how much misinformation is out there, especially with keto nonsense. Yeah, and it's unfortunate because real people with real good information is out there and people just want to ignore it, which was what I was saying before, which I've argued many times before, is that people belief is the enemy of reason. Belief is the death of reason. I watch these anti-vegan protests against these vegan YouTubers who present the research, present the arguments flawlessly, even present the counter arguments and debunk them. And all these other people have to do is attack them personally, and they present no evidence other than saying, well, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, but they don't present any evidence. And it's really, really strange. It's like I said in a recent podcast, one of the early biggest, best lessons I ever learned was when the first extensive article was written on me in Muscle Mag way back. It was a feature article, 6 pages long. And I remember I was so naive at the time. I had all these haters and I also had a fan club. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I got to read the article before the magazine came out, obviously. And I thought, well, good. This is really good. Now people who don't like me will read this and they'll get where I'm coming from. And maybe it'll reduce the hate, but it didn't. So the people that liked me read that article and it reinforced the reasons why they liked me. And the people who didn't like me read the exact same words and it reinforced their opinion of why they didn't like me. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I recently saw there was an online debate between Dr. Katz from Yale University, a vegan, and it was supposed to be a debate with a non-vegan debunker, meat eater lady who's known online. Her name doesn't matter. And this wasn't even close debate. This was a slam dunk for Dr. Katz. He presented hundreds of pieces of research, sometimes just whipping through them just to show it was there and they could look it up and they could find it. And this other person presented not one piece that said meat eating people are healthier than non-meat eating people. Not one piece. All just kept disagreeing with him with no evidence and basically just saying, oh, you can't just appeal to authority. You can't just appeal to authority, which she didn't realize by default was representing herself as the authority that people shouldn't buy into, which made no sense. It was so tautological and convoluted. Here's the point. When I looked at where I saw the debate, which was a plant-based website, it was clear, and it's clear if anyone's objective, that Dr. Katz completely slammed this person in the so-called debate. And yet, when I went to a meat eater site that watched the same debate, the same words, the same people, it was overwhelming on how she slammed Dr. Katz and put him in his place. And it just boggles my mind on how people will bend reality, bend evidence to shape the perception of what they'd rather believe rather than the truth. Very, very upsetting, very, very scary and eerie to me, but it explains a lot of the politics that we see going on as well. Anyway, that's metabolism porn, folks. I'm going to put that on the screen one more time. So hopefully, I know a lot of people are rewatching this because it's a holiday week throughout North America. I knew there wouldn't be a lot of people here, but the title itself, I think, and hey, I'll be honest, that title itself, clickbait, purposefully designed to be clickbait. But the information contained within is designed to educate people with real knowledge so you can proceed out into the world and realize metabolism porn when you see it for what it is, and then be able to ignore it or indulge in it as entertainment. And that's it. The same thing with where the word porn actually comes from. So you have to know the difference. If you don't, there's not many people that can help you. So I'm hoping people get it. So Mark's just saying, thanks, Coach, watching from Michigan. Hope you got to see enough of it, Mark. I hope you got to see a lot of it. It means a lot to me. So Donna's just saying, great presentation. Thank you, Donna. Hopefully you're hitting the share button or your emoticons, because that means a lot, especially to Facebook. That's how Facebook decides who gets to see what. And Donald, again, sorry I can't say your name right. I'm trying to whisk through these. So my wife and I have been eating primarily plant-based, and I've lost fat and gained muscle with very little change in activity. If any change, is probably not as much activity. So I'm a proponent of plant-based. Yeah, it's pretty much in the evidence now. I don't know, it'll take some naysayers a while to come along, but it really is overwhelming, the evidence, but very important. So Alex is just saying, great topic. Keep up the weekly webinars. Yeah, I'm going to, Alex, as much as time allows. I will say it is difficult for me often to put together like what it takes to do one of these for an hour. It takes several days of work. So especially if I'm going to present research and I'm going to present PowerPoint slides, and there's a lot of people that help me with a lot of this stuff. So there's Perry, there's Mike, but there's especially Ange, who pretties up all the stuff that I don't know how to do online because I'm a techno idiot. Mark just saying, yeah, you missed a lot, but he'll be rewatching once it's done, and comment more. Yeah, please, folks, spread the word, comment, engage, comment, ask other commenters questions. Like I said, it's what Facebook really likes, and I'd rather my stuff get out there as my stuff before other people start ripping it off and presenting it as their own, because they know how to manipulate the internet better than I do. So it helps me when you guys share and like, and emoticons and all the rest of it. So that being said, folks, hope you enjoyed this webinar on metabolism porn. I hope the analogy made sense, because I did detail it all the way through to the actual categories and subcategories, etc. So I do this to try to help people. It's why I write books. It's why I do courses. It's why I do everything. So hopefully it resonates. And with that being said, hopefully you'll share this for people to rewatch when their holiday is over, because I think the content is really, really important for people to try to absorb the misunderstanding of metabolism in particular, even if you don't like the actual topic. So anyway, I will see you all in the next video. Stay tuned. I'll be posting stuff all the time. Some of them will be a lot shorter than the weekly webinars, but I am going to go live a lot more often, even if I'm done being live before anybody even gets on. So I think some shorter videos will help too. And yeah, just one, Damo's just saying, hey guys, take the courses. It's well worth it. Yeah, keep those kind of comments coming. Thank you, folks. Hopefully, anyone benefited from this, and I will see you all next time.